I'm getting all the inheritance. As a husband, it's my natural right in a marriage.
Maybe I'll buy a mansion. The husband and mother-in-law are extremely fixated on money. It's not just me. They even try to claim my father's inheritance as their own. Why should I hand over the wealth my father built up to these people? I will never forgive them, nor will I let them have their way. My name is Sarah. I'm a 44-year-old in my 20th year of marriage. I juggle housework and my job, living a busy life. My husband John, 2 years my senior at 46, works at a supermarket near the station. We met when I was a university student and working part-time at the supermarket where he worked. We started dating somewhat casually and got married when I was 24. We live with our son, Bill, who just started university this spring. I have a fulfilling job that keeps me busy, but there's one thing that troubles me. It's my husband's reckless spending. It's our right to spend our earned money however we want, but he's relentless in asking for more when it runs out. It's worse when all three of us are together.
Sarah, I ran out of pocket money for this month, so put about $200 in my wallet.
He demands additional pocket money every month. Again, it shouldn't be that little. What are you spending it all on?
Shut up. A man has various social obligations.
My husband raises his voice immediately if I show the slightest resistance.
It's all because you insisted on sending Bill to college in the first place.
That's right, Sarah. It's enough to just graduate high school like John. Or what? Are you thinking you don't want Bill to end up like John because you graduated from college yourself? The mother-in-law corners me with her sarcasm. That's because Bill has a goal to become a lawyer. You agreed to it too, didn't you?
I didn't think it would cost so much money.
Then the father-in-law says,
Sarah, you could just have your father pay for all of it. He lives in such a big house. He wouldn't hesitate to spend on his dear grandson's college fees.
I thought, isn't he your dear grandson too? But I kept quiet, knowing it was pointless to argue. It's always like this when it comes to money. I'm really glad Bill wasn't home at this time. He doesn't think highly of his grandparents either. He makes sure to go out whenever he knows they're coming. It's always the same. My husband and his parents know my father runs a company and lives in a large house, so they try to get money from me. Then one day, while preparing dinner, Bill told me something shocking.
Mom, Dad's cheating. I saw him. He was walking into a hotel arm in arm with a woman.
I never thought I would hear such a report from my son. I felt more disgusted than angry, realizing I probably didn't love him anymore.
Just get a divorce, Mom. I can work part-time.
It's very reassuring to know my son feels the same way. Thank you, Bill. But I'll talk to your father first. You don't have to worry about anything. If we do get divorced, I'm working too. And on the night I thought to confront him about this, suddenly my husband came home with his parents. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, what brings you here all of a sudden? Then the husband and his parents barged into the living room.
I thought I'd do something nice for my parents, like taking them on a trip to Hawaii. It's a bit much, but could you prepare about $5,000?
Again, a demand for money, and this time a large amount. The in-laws were grinning at me. Where would I get that kind of money?
If you don't have it, ask your father. It's unfair that your parents live in a big house and we're in a rental apartment.
He came up with some nonsensical argument. I was fed up and said, Speaking of which, you're cheating, aren't you? My husband and his parents froze. I thought it would be better to have them hear it too, so I decided to confront him as planned.
I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I cheat? Do you have any proof?
He was clearly flustered. Someone saw you entering a hotel looking cozy with another woman.
Anyone could say that. Bring this person who saw it.
That is... I hesitated, not wanting my anger to be directed at Bill. Sarah, even if that's true, forgive a cheat or two. It's normal for men. You're his wife. You don't need to make a fuss. I wasn't making a fuss, and I couldn't believe my mother-in-law, a woman herself, was condoning cheating. More importantly, hurry up with the money for the Hawaii trip.
Yeah, we've already made the reservations,
added the father-in-law.
That's right, Sarah. I'm counting on you.
My husband always tries to change the subject when things don't go his way. I couldn't stand these people anymore. I decided to cut ties. We're getting a divorce, I said it calmly.
What are you talking about? Don't decide that on your own. If you really want a divorce, I'll take your parents' mansion as property division.
While we were arguing, my cell phone rang. It was from my uncle. He's my father's brother, with whom I often drink together.
Is that you, Sarah? Your father suddenly lost consciousness and collapsed. He's been taken to the hospital by ambulance. I don't know his condition yet, but can you come quickly?
I answered without hesitation. I explained the situation to my husband and his parents and hurried to the hospital. Uncle, how's Dad?
For now, he's asleep. He's not in immediate danger, but his condition isn't great.
I was somewhat relieved, fearing the worst. My father is 67, so it wouldn't be strange for something to happen at his age. My father took over the company from my grandfather and worked tirelessly. Now he leads a comfortable life, but it was tough at the beginning, to the point where we almost had to sell the big house my grandfather built. My father worked hard to turn things around. My mother passed away from an illness when I was in middle school, but my father never remarried and raised me by himself. My father is irreplaceable to me. It seemed like he wouldn't wake up today, so after talking with my uncle for a bit, I went home. A few days later, I got a call that my father had woken up, and Bill and I went to visit him.
Hey, Sarah. Bill. Sorry to worry you.
He seemed more energetic than I thought, which was a relief.
Bill, how's college going? Yeah, college is fun, and I'm studying hard.
My father was happy to see Bill, but when Bill stepped out, he said,
Sarah, if something happens to me, I've left everything about the company to my subordinates, so you don't have to worry. As for the house...
I interrupted my father. Dad, don't talk nonsense. Just get better soon. You don't need to worry about anything right now.
Yeah, you're right,
my father replied with a sad but gentle smile. Afterward, the doctor called me, and it seemed my father's condition was quite serious. Years of overwork had taken their toll. On the way back, I couldn't stop crying. A few days later, my father passed away. That night, I cried until my eyelids swelled. During that time, Bill was my only support, staying by my side the whole time. However, as an only child, there were things I had to do. I started preparing for the funeral, trying to switch gears. The funeral was held at my family home, and many people came to offer condolences. I was reminded of how great my father was. I was too busy with the arrangements to grieve. Bill helped as much as he could, even though he didn't understand everything, but my husband just played with his phone, doing nothing. With the help of relatives and my father's colleagues, we managed to get through the funeral. As we were cleaning up, my in-laws hurried over. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, thank you for today. As I greeted them, my mother-in-law said, Sarah, that's not important. What a splendid house as always. She seemed impressed by the size of my family home. Huh? I was speechless due to our vastly different emotions.
Sarah, is it true this house would sell for $3 million?
Another insensitive question from my father-in-law. I evaded the question. I don't know, it's not my house. Then my mother-in-law quickly added, You don't have any siblings, right, Sarah? Yes, what about it? I answered sternly. Oh, nothing, just checking. After that, they left satisfied with my husband. After all the memorial services were over, I finally had a moment to breathe. While I was putting away the funeral clothes at home.
My parents are coming over now.
What? Why are they coming? I was depressed, thinking it was about money again.
Why are they coming? They're my parents. We'll talk about it when they get here, so wait a little longer.
A few minutes later, my in-laws arrived. Grinning, they sat on the sofa. Then my husband said,
Hey, Sarah, when are we moving? If it's just the three of us in such a big house, it's a waste. My parents will live with us after we move.
What are you talking about all of a sudden? We're getting divorced. I was busy with my father's affairs, but my intention to divorce hadn't changed.
Oh, come on. That topic again? I was wrong before. Got a bit angry. But I'm not cheating and I don't want a divorce.
Don't joke around. I raised my voice.
Now, you two. Spouses share everything, so it's not good to monopolize.
He smirked and said something nonsensical. A wife should listen to her husband.
You're planning to keep all the inheritance for yourself. I'll take it all. It's my right as a husband.
If you don't like living together, Sarah, you can just give us the inheritance. Maybe we'll buy a mansion? My husband and his parents seemed to think all the inheritance was theirs. What a ridiculous family. My patience had long been exceeded by the audacity of these people, thinking they could inherit the house filled with precious memories of my father and the wealth he had worked so hard to accumulate.
I want a room that's spacious and gets plenty of sunlight. I'd prefer a room close to the toilet.
There are plenty of toilets in such a big house. Despite my glaring at them in anger, they were discussing these outrageous things. I vowed never to let them have their way. A few days later, I got a call from my uncle.
It's been tough, Sarah. You did well.
My uncle consoled me.
There's something I need to talk to you about. Can you spare some time?
I agreed to meet him that night. Uncle, what's up? What did you want to talk about?
There's something I absolutely have to tell you, Sarah.
I was shocked by what he told me. I couldn't believe it had come to this. Then I told him everything about what my husband and in-laws were saying.
What? They said that? Ridiculous people. Unforgivable.
My uncle was furious. I definitely don't want to let them have their way. But it seems okay from what you said, Uncle. What should I do? How can I make them give up?
Don't worry about anything, Sarah. Leave it all to me. Actually, there's more.
Hearing another piece of news from my uncle, I was even more astonished. Uncle, can we meet again tomorrow? I want Bill to hear this too. He's not a child anymore, and this will be a good learning experience for him. I decided to proceed with the plan with my uncle and Bill. The next day, I took Bill to meet with my uncle to discuss our strategy. For Bill, it was about his father and grandparents. I was worried about how he would truly feel, but it was an unnecessary concern.
That's an amazing story. I'm getting excited. I don't care about people who see Mom and Grandpa only as money. Please, help us, Uncle.
Bill was excited to participate in the plan, so we decided to move forward with it. The next day, I called my in-laws to our house and spoke with them, my husband, and Bill, 6 of us in total. About living in my family home. Were you serious?
Of course. Finally, you're on board. I've been waiting.
Immediately, my mother-in-law said, "The sooner the better. Living in such a mansion is like a dream." Then my father-in-law added,
After all, we had to pay the cancellation fee for that trip we talked about before. You have to reimburse us for that.
They had made the reservation themselves. I was appalled at their selfishness. Then my mother-in-law said, "We'll make back the money soon enough. Don't rush." I was used to it and knew it wouldn't happen, so I could ignore it. But Bill, unaccustomed to their blatant money grabbing, seemed to be trembling with anger. I patted Bill's shoulder to calm him down. "Okay, let's do it. There's a lot to prepare for the move, so mother-in-law and father-in-law, please let us know when you've decided on the moving date. John, you move on the same day. Bill and I will go ahead to get the house ready."
I get why you're going, but why Bill?
John's question was unusually sharp. "Can you prepare meals and do laundry? Bill is still a student. You can manage just for yourself, right?"
Yeah, I guess.
I managed to deflect with a plausible reason. However, John said,
You can do the tidying in the daytime. Why move ahead? You're not planning to take the best rooms for yourselves, are you? You know that house best.
He was resisting over trivial matters. "It's fine. That mansion has over 10 rooms, right, Sarah?" Mother-in-law was in a good mood the entire time, thinking they could live in the mansion, unknowingly pushing the conversation in a direction that worked in my favor. "I can't do any tidying up during the day because of work. We'll do it slowly at night and on days off. Don't worry, you can choose your room first."
Really? All right then, that's settled.
I managed to deflect the situation. In my mind, I thought, just wait and see. I'll bring you down to the bottom soon. A month later, the moving day was set, and I received a message from my husband. The day of the final showdown was decided. and I was excited. On the day my husband and in-laws arrived at my family home with a moving truck, Bill and I were waiting in front of the entrance. As my husband got out of the car, he said,
"Hey, kept you waiting, huh? So this is my house from today. I've really made it."
Ignoring my husband's poor joke, I looked at my in-laws, who were sparkling with excitement, not realizing they were about to turn back. Then the gate opened, and my uncle came out from the house. My uncle stood there, arms crossed, silent.
"Who are you? What are you doing in someone else's house?"
My husband apparently didn't even remember my uncle, whom he had met at the funeral. "This is my uncle, my father's brother. You met him at the funeral, remember?"
"Oh, yeah, that time."
My husband awkwardly muttered something like a thanks, but his voice trailed off.
So, what are you doing here?"
He asked hesitantly, while my in-laws looked on, puzzled. Then my uncle said,
"This is my house. Is there a problem with me being in my own house?"
My uncle spoke assertively from the beginning, overwhelming my husband and in-laws.
"It seems you have a lot of misunderstandings. I've heard the story from Sarah. The inheritance from my father was divided between my brother and me. My brother got the company and I got the house. But I had already left home and was living elsewhere with my family. I didn't plan to move back. Since my brother was running the company, he continued living here. So, he lived here, but the house was in my name. In other words, just because my brother passed away, it doesn't mean the house belongs to Sarah."
They didn't seem to fully understand my uncle's words.
"Sarah, what's this about? Aren't we moving in here today?"
My husband asked calmly, as if he had moved past anger. "I won't let that happen. You and your family have always been after my father's money, demanding absurd things like living in the mansion or paying for vacations, even after my father passed away. Why should people like you, who haven't put in any effort, get what my father worked so hard for? You're incredibly brazen. I won't let you have your way." I raised my voice, which took my husband and in-laws aback. But my husband said,
"What? How dare you speak to me like that?"
Then suddenly Bill intervened.
"Dad, you're cheating, right? I was the one who told Mom." "Bill, what nonsense are you spouting?"
My husband couldn't hide his shock at being confronted by his son.
"I saw it. Dad entering a hotel looking cozy with a woman." "Are you sure it was me? It's a serious mistake if you're wrong."
My husband still wouldn't admit it.
"Dad, just stop it. Leave Mom and us. Disappear from our lives."
The words from his son seemed to hit him hard, but my in-law's obsession with money was relentless. "We don't know what the truth is, but if you want a divorce, go ahead. But we'll need a proper property division. We gave up our apartment and even quit our jobs to relax in that mansion from today." Then my mother-in-law added, "That's right. John quit his job too. We have nowhere to live or work now. It's too convenient for you to just send us back. We'll make sure we get what we're owed." I was astounded. Huh? You quit your jobs? Both of you? Why would you quit your jobs? Just because you're moving houses? Are you stupid? Now I clearly see how much you were counting on my father's inheritance. You're the ones being too presumptuous. The hopelessness of my husband's and his parents' actions far exceeded my expectations.
"Either way, as his child, I'm supposed to inherit the estate. I'll be expecting a hefty property division."
That's when my uncle stepped in again.
"Listening to you talk, one absurd thing after another. I can't believe how you come up with such ideas. There's no point in having a rational conversation with you. To put it bluntly, I'm a lawyer." "So what? How does that relate to anything?" "Don't you get it? The divorce will go through, and you'll be the one paying the property division."
My husband and his parents still didn't seem to grasp it.
"It's true that just Bill witnessing your affair isn't enough evidence. But a month ago, Sarah hired me as a lawyer to investigate your infidelity."
My husband's face gradually turned pale.
"In the past month, you've met with a part-time worker at your workplace. Let's call her Mrs. A. 5 times. About once a week. Always at the same hotel. I know about the allowance Sarah gives you. It's not enough, right? That's why you were always asking for more." "What are you basing this on? Do you have any evidence? I'm saying this because I have evidence. I have several photos. Shall I mention Mrs. A's name here?
My husband had no choice but to admit it.
You're having an affair. That's an undeniable fact. You won't get a penny from Sarah, and you'll have to pay the damage instead.
Finally, my husband and his parents seemed to understand the situation. From now on, please handle everything through a lawyer, and never show your faces to me again. I said it firmly. My husband glared at me for a moment, but then looked away, and they all left the way they had come. Thank you, Uncle.
No problem. I was more motivated than usual since they were bad-mouthing my brother. Once this is settled, I'm going back to my family. Sarah and Bill, you live in this house. It's what your father and grandfather would have wanted. It's a shame for such a nice house to be empty.
Okay, I'm happy to live here, I answered with a smile. Honestly, I had hoped for this outcome. Not just living in a mansion, but being able to live in a house full of memories with my father.
Thank you, Uncle. This has been a great learning experience for the future. Good job, Bill. Investigating your own parents' affair is quite an intense work experience. Study hard in college and become a great lawyer.
After that, my uncle successfully finalized the divorce. Bill and I began living in the house my father had lived in. It was too big for just the two of us, but I was very happy to be surrounded by memories. Bill seemed to have learned a lot from my uncle and was more committed than ever to his studies to become a lawyer. My husband and his parents ended up living in an old apartment. He struggled to find a new job due to his age and called me once.
I need to borrow some money.
His tone was different from before, not entitled but pleading. What? We're estranged. We're strangers now. I don't lend money to strangers. Don't contact me ever again. I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. Since then, there's been no contact from my ex-husband. My uncle told me they were getting by with part-time and day jobs. Apparently, his affair partner left him too because he was no longer financially stable. It turned out they never planned to go on the Hawaii trip and had borrowed money from somewhere unknown to me. They were planning to use the money to pay back their debts. I don't know who came up with such a scheme. It's irrelevant now, but I'm glad I cut ties with them. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, both physically and mentally. I'm going to work hard at the job I love. My immediate goal is to see Bill graduate from college successfully.